The truth will finally come to light, and things will never be the same again. The court was charged with the promise of a story of betrayal, suspense, and scandal, and the tension was so thick one could feel it. Cameras flashed repeatedly, recording every minor movement, every look as the audience leaned forward in their seats, eager for a tale that held the possibility of betrayal, suspense, and scandal. The atmosphere was redolent with a sweet scent of polished wood and nervous expectation. Robin Brown entered the room, standing upright, calm exterior, almost serene, but within her heart beating like a drum. For years she had walked the gossamer thin line of the Brown family dynamic with precision, weighing love, loyalty, and secrecy against each other, with almost surgical finesse. She had always been the quiet mediator, the peacemaker, the one who kept flare-ups from erupting in front of the children, the public, and even Kody. But now, all that delicate balancing was about to come crashing down. It began with a letter. Not any letter, but unsigned, anonymous, scribbled note that somehow ended up in the possession of a gossip-prone reporter familiar with sensationalizing the Brown family. The language on the page was rough and cutting, dripping with accusations and insinuations. Robin had been keeping a secret regarding the family finances. A secret that could bring down the empire Kody Brown had spent 40 years constructing. It talked about money gone missing, hidden bank accounts, and manipulations indicating betrayal from within. Initially, Robin had believed it to be a prank, a futile effort at raising drama. But then the calls began. Press calls, queries from individuals she had thought of as friends, and even family members inquiring about explanations. The burden of suspicion weighed upon her like an oppressive cloak, one that was unyielding and smothering. And now, here she stood, in a courtroom where all eyes were upon her, prepared to judge her. Whispers in the courtroom were like small knives. "Can you believe she would do that?" someone whispered behind her. Another voice chimed in. "I always knew there was something not right." Robin felt the brunt of their glares, the unseen force of condemnation pressing in on her from all sides. It wasn't just the public she had to fear. It was the family, the children, the press, and her own personal conscience. Robin's mind revisited the past few months as a movie she couldn't fast forward. How did this happen? She had always practiced openness in the family, at resolving conflicts in private and with deference. And now, a silent letter had opened a dam of doubt that no explanation could readily shut. She caught a glimpse of Kody across the room. His face was a mask, expressionless, but his eyes revealed a flash of concern. Even he, who had had so much practice with dealing with family crises, appeared disturbed. The letter had alleged Robin had laundered money without his consent. It implied she had opened accounts in her name behind his back, siphoning funds from family businesses, and perhaps even hijacking business transactions to benefit herself. Each and every word of that letter was crafted to hurt, to instill fear and uncertainty. And sadly, it worked. The prosecution wasted no time. Their opening statements were delivered with a calculated blend of theatrical drama and pointed accusations. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," the lead attorney began, voice smooth but dripping with insinuation, "we are here to uncover the truth behind years of deceit. Evidence will show that the defendant, Robin Brown, has not been truthful about financial dealings that affect not only her family, but the public perception of this household." The words struck Robin like rocks thrown at a windowpane. All eyes in the courtroom were on her, as if she were under a microscope, her every gesture examined. She clutched her hands together, palms moist, but she would not let terror govern her attitude. Composure, she reminded herself, was her friend. Panic would make the tale convincing. Outside the courtroom, news vans congregated, their satellite dishes pointed at the building. Social media handles filled with rumors. Headlines started to frame before a shred of evidence had even been looked at. Robin Brown accused of financial betrayal. Family secrets uncovered in court. The pressure of public opinion started building like a tidal wave, and Robin realized that even if she were able to prove her innocence, the cloud of suspicion would remain. But for all the tension, Robin was not defenseless. She had formed a solid infrastructure of trust around her. Friends, honest family members, and coworkers who really knew her nature would give evidence of her integrity. And she had proof, emails, bank accounts, and financial data that could refute the outlandish accusations of the anonymous letter. But for now, she had to weather the first bout of court melodrama. As she waited, sitting there for the first witness to be called, Robin's thoughts drifted to the possibilities if she lost. Not only legal repercussions, but personal ones. The family might break apart. Relationships might be broken forever. The children, innocent and observant, could sense the tension in ways she would never be able to contain. Her very sense of self, painstakingly constructed over years of patience and hard work, was on trial before the world. The room grew quiet as the first witness took his place. The strategy of the prosecution was obvious: plant doubt, generate tension, and use the art of suggestion instead of fact. Every question was designed to imply guilt. Every moment of silence calculated to make the jury doubt Robin's virtue. Her heart was racing as she waited to take her part, aware that every word she said, every look she gave, could influence the verdict. But inside, Robin understood something essential. The truth has a way of surfacing, regardless of how deeply lies attempt to conceal it. She had struggled with her family before, had dealt with issues of complex family dynamics, and now she was being made to do exactly the same under the most brutal illumination possible. If she could keep her head, show her facts clearly, and appeal to the sense of justice in the jury, she stood a good chance of coming out not only unharmed, but vindicated. With the swing of the gavel, and the official start of the trial, one thought echoed in Robin's mind. This is not about money, not about allegations, it's about justice, faith, and the strength to battle the storm head-on. Things will never be the same, but I will not shatter. The court fell silent for a moment, everybody feeling the weight of the occasion. Then, the very first witness was summoned, and the war for truth, reputation, and family honor commenced. Every word uttered here could turn everything around. The courtroom was like a war zone. Robin sat calmly, her fingers drumming against her knee, but turmoil churned inside her. The prosecution had fired their first shot, laying out so-called evidence against her with deliberate care. Every document, every accusation, was crafted to make her appear guilty, even to her most loyal defenders. The opposition's lead attorney was tall and confident, a vision of one. His voice rang out in the room, soft but heavy with implication. Ladies and gentlemen, the facts will prove that the defendant has had a course of dishonesty. Money has been siphoned off, accounts kept hidden, family members deceived, and the whole time she seemed to have a spotless public image, concealing the truth behind a serene mask. Gasps were heard throughout the room. The jurors fidgeted in their seats. Even old hands felt a shiver of discomfort at the brazenness of the allegation. Robin's heart skipped a beat, but she wasn't going to let that show. She had rehearsed this moment, and she knew that keeping her cool was her greatest asset. Her defense lawyer stood, his voice calm and assured. The charges you've heard are predicated on unsubstantiated accusations, tampered documents, and deceptive assumptions, he declared. Robin Brown has dedicated her life to her family, to integrity, and to seeing that they are safe. We will show, by facts and credible evidence, that these accusations are not only untrue, they are pernicious falsehoods intended to foster distrust. The court was abuzz as the initial witnesses were called to testify. Among them were family members who had remained loyal to Robin throughout years of struggles, their devotion evident and unshakable. They testified with emotion, testifying to instances of her integrity, her hard work, and her commitment to family and business alike. Their accounts presented a woman who had always conducted herself honorably, even when there was difficulty in making the right decision. But others, silently sitting in the gallery, provided subtle suggestions of anger. They spoke in guarded tones, each word gingerly considered, but the impact was unmistakable. Suspicion entered the jury's thoughts, like a presence lurking at the edges of the room. Some of Robin's family members murmured that she had occasionally behaved in ways they could not fathom. Others suggested there were moments of rivalry or strain. The prosecution pounced on these tiny fissures, blowing them into an odyssey of possible culpability. Robin's heart beat faster whenever she was asked directly. Cross-examination commenced, and the questions were cutting as surgical in their accuracy. "You assert you know nothing of secret accounts," the lawyer opposing her said. "Is it conceivable then that you missed something important? That possibly your coolness conceals inaction or perhaps complicity?" She took a deep breath, calming herself. Her thoughts flashed over all the evidence she had carefully assembled: banking statements, emails, business documents. Every detail, every receipt, every digital breadcrumb had been saved with caution. "I have always kept open books on everything family and financial," she said firmly but calmly. "I have never siphoned money or acted in secret against my family. These are untrue accusations." A whisper ran through the courtroom. Some jurors nodded discreetly, enjoying her clarity. Others were still in doubt, conditioned by tension and drama. Robin was aware of the power of perception, how composure, inflection, and even posture could turn suspicion into trust or vice versa. She kept herself firm, allowing her words to have substance without exaggeration. The prosecution weren't done. They showed what they suggested was financial anomalies: spreadsheets highlighted in red, and suspicious-looking bank transfers. The presentation was sensational, intended to grab attention, to elicit an emotional response, before the facts had even been considered by the jury. But Robin's defense team struck back at once. "These so-called anomalies are standard transfers, all documented and approved," her lawyer clarified. "There is no wrongdoing involved. What the prosecution offers is a cunningly crafted illusion, meant to deceive rather than enlighten." The courtroom was charged with tension. Each sentence was cross-examined, each look picked apart. Robin felt the pressure of expectation bearing down on her, not only from the jury, but from the media, the spectators, and even her own relatives. It was tiring, suffocating, but she would not let herself panic. Then there was a very heated moment. The other side called a longtime family associate, a person who had at times expressed disagreements with Robin in the past. He posed pointed questions regarding decisions that Robin had made in the handling of family resources, casting suspicion without specifically making accusations. Robin maintained her poise, while the witness described minor conflicts, characterizing them as misunderstandings and not proof of dishonesty. Her lawyer expertly steered the testimony back toward specifics, pointing out Robin's openness and accountability. The courtroom sat in wide-eyed attention, feeling the thin line of truth versus impression in the air. Throughout the trial, Robin's mind kept coming back to one key observation: perception was as strong as fact. If she wavered in tone, in forbearance, or in intelligibility, the whole trial might turn against her. She reminded herself, but silently, that courage was as much a tool as truth. As the first day of testimony concluded, tension did not subside. Flashing cameras illuminated the courtroom as the gavel was pounded, sending the crowd and media representatives into a whirlwind of speculation. In the plaza outside the courthouse, reporters thronged to get quotes, repeating the same questions endlessly. Was she hiding something? Can the Brown family weather this scandal? Is Robin really innocent? Robin wouldn't answer. She strolled untroubled to her vehicle, flanked by her lawyer and a few security personnel, keeping up an even demeanor for the cameras and the crowds. Within the confines of her car, she breathed slowly, the tension finally yielding to a glimmer of relief. The war had been waged, and she had endured the initial tempest, but she understood the struggle was only just beginning. Tomorrow would bring more witnesses, more allegations, and more tension. And yet, at her core, Robin had a quiet resolve. She would confront every question, every suggestion, and every obstacle with the same firm determination that had driven her for years. This was not merely a trial of funds, it was a trial of her character, her toughness, and her strength in guarding the family she loved. Each word that is said here could make all the difference, she reminded herself, as the courtroom cleared and doors swung shut behind her. And with that reminder, Robin was prepared for whatever lay ahead. When evidence disappears, suspicion grows. Just when Robin's defense appeared to take hold, a stunning revelation created pandemonium in the courtroom. A pivotal piece of evidence, an account book that could conclusively establish Robin's innocence, had gone missing. Her defense team gazed in shock, scanning through files, rechecking folders, and phoning court officials. The paper was to be the linchpin of her defense, and now it had gone missing, as though it never occurred. A hushed murmur circulated through the courtroom gallery. Onlookers exchanged anxious looks, whispers spreading like wildfire through the room. Did she conceal it? A person whispered. Or did someone steal it? Asked another. The charge hung over the room like a thundercloud, heavy with suspicion. Robin's panic boiled over, but she covered it with the serene composure that had brought her this far. Her heart pounded, her thoughts reeling. How could this occur now? Who would do this? She was cognizant of the risks. Her reputation, her family's cohesion, and even her own future hung in the balance. One missing ledger could swing the tide of the trial in her favor, or against her. Her lawyer asked for a recess immediately, and the judge, feeling the tension, complied. Detectives were summoned outside the courtroom to search for evidence of disappearance. Everything was examined: who had access to the files, when they were last seen, and if the disappearance was accidental or deliberate. With every passing hour, however, apprehension mounted. Was this sabotage? A calculated move to discredit Robin? Inside, Robin was calm, although her brain never ceased its activity. She relived every conversation, every exchange of documents, every discussion regarding finances. It just didn't feel right. She was sure the ledger had been secure prior to arriving at court. It had been taken by someone on purpose. But by whom? And why? Gossip started spreading outside of court, filtering into the press. Headlines blared. Critical evidence missing in reason. Robin Brown trial. And did Robin manipulate family finances? Social media exploded with theories. Fans, critics, and onlookers argued every which way. The scrutiny was overwhelming, not only legally, but in front of the public eye. Every gaze seemed to be scrutinizing her, every rumor doubting her integrity. Within the courtroom, the opposition attorney grasped his chance. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, he declared slowly, we are now faced with the reality that a central document is nowhere to be found. What is it to lose the evidence that might acquit a defendant? Might it be deliberate? His eyes ranged over the jury, suggesting deception without directly accusing. The courtroom held its breath. Robin's defense lawyer moved forward, her demeanor calm but resolute. This is a setback, admittedly, but it doesn't prove guilt. The evidence was in lawful custody, and we will get to the bottom of this. My client has been open in all matters of finance. Manipulations of perception will not work. In spite of what he said, Robin could sense the tension building. Every gaze in the room scanned her face for fear or guilt. She knew that perception could prove as strong as facts at this moment. Her calm was her shield, and each deliberate smile, calculated word, and gradual breath counted. As the search for the missing ledger went on, detectives questioned employees, court workers, and even some family members with access. Suspicions landed in all directions, and for an instant, Robin questioned whether or not she could trust anyone. All conversations were loaded with agendas. Each new person she met could be a friend, or a saboteur. Back in the courtroom, witnesses were subpoenaed to come forward and testify regarding the ledger and its pages. Their testimony was technical, replete with strings of transactions, dates, and account numbers. But each minor inconsistency was exploited to the hilt by the opposition, as evidence of Robin's supposed wrongdoing. Each argument raised intensified pressure, each hesitation in testimony, a suspenseful beat in the trial's rhythm. Robin knew she had to have a plan. Panic would serve no one, and it would destroy the credibility she had worked so hard to maintain. She sat secretly with her lawyer, planning how they would redirect the story. In case the ledger couldn't be produced right away, they would depend on computer records, emails, and affidavits from family members she trusted. They would present the truth to the jury, even without the physical document. Days turned into weeks. The lost ledger held the top spot in headlines, courtroom debate, and at home. Friends and supporters called with messages of encouragement and support. Some family members were still not convinced, their concerns driven by the fact that the crucial evidence had not been found. And through it all, Robin was calm, energized by the fact that she was innocent. Then a breakthrough arrived unexpectedly. During a review of the digital backup file, Robin's attorney discovered a complete electronic copy of the ledger. Every transaction, every detail meticulously preserved and verified. The missing evidence was not destroyed. It had merely been misplaced due to a clerical error. Relief surged through Robin, though she knew the drama was far from over. They still had to present it convincingly in court. under intense scrutiny and media attention. The court resumed, and Robin sensed renewed determination. The lost ledger had instilled doubt, suspicion, and fear, but now she held the authority to reverse the tide. The opposition, not knowing that a duplicate had been found, persisted with their covert probes, oblivious to the fact that their tale was poised to come undone. Robin's mind whirled as she readied to testify again. She realized now more than ever that this trial was not merely about money. It was about courage, vision, and staying cool under fire. And she knew that as soon as the electronic ledger was introduced into evidence, the narrative would change. The jury would witness not only the evidence but the grit, the smartness, and the integrity of the woman standing in front of them. And as the gavel came down, the session adjourned until tomorrow. Robin whispered to herself, "The truth will emerge. I will not be defeated." Cameras clicked outside the courtroom, reporters whispered, and spectators gasped. The tension was excruciating, but Robin had weathered the storm thus far. She had endured betrayal, skepticism, and the accusations. And now the next act of this riveting, heart-wrenching drama could begin. Not all enemies come from the outside. Just as Robin felt she could finally catch her breath, the courtroom was thrown into shock by a revelation that would leave her shaking in her core. The air was tense with an understanding silence as a family member was summoned to the stand, a person Robin had confided in deeply. Everyone was convinced their testimony would be in her favor, providing understanding and reassurance following the roller coaster of lost evidence. What came instead was a blow no one, including the seasoned courthouse onlookers, could anticipate. The voice of the family member shook as he admitted to releasing fabrications about Robin's financial transactions. He said he falsified documents and left anonymous tips for the press. And all for ambition, jealousy, and a need to become more powerful within the Brown family. The courtroom fell quiet, the weight of the betrayal suspended like a dense fog. Robin's world shifted. The betrayal was intimate, personal, and hurtful in a way that no public accusation could ever hope to equal. This was a person she had trusted, a person she had shared the intimacies of family business with. And now, this individual had taken the trial and used it as a platform for their own interests, seeking to bring down all that Robin fought to preserve. Gasps and murmurs rippled across the courtroom. Cameras flashed, freezing the shocked expressions of jurors, onlookers, and even opposing team members. The confession changed the mood of the trial at once. What had appeared as a mountain of evidence against Robin now seemed like a strategized effort to change perception, inducing doubt where there was none. Robin's lawyer rose swiftly, grabbing the moment. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this confession is proof of what we've maintained all along. My client has been unfairly targeted. The charges were not true. They were predicated on lies, deceit, and petty vendettas." Robin took a deep breath. Her chest felt heavy, but she forced herself to remain composed. She had always believed that betrayal from a loved one could wound more deeply than any external attack. And now she was living that truth. Yet, despite the emotional pain, she knew this revelation was also her opportunity to reclaim her voice and her story. As the family member went on to testify, the opposing counsel tried to de-emphasize the fact, characterizing the confession as hyperbolic or partial. But the jury saw the raw emotion, the inescapable guilt, and the genuine remorse in the admission. The tide was shifting, and the courtroom was charged with anticipation. Robin's brain reeled with memories of family histories, silent arguments, and unspoken tensions. How had this individual become resentful enough to have acted so theatrically? How had they let jealousy contaminate their own judgment? The betrayal stung, but it also highlighted a key fact. She had been grappling not only with external danger but with covert struggles in her own family. The confession caused ripples outside the courtroom as well. News hounds rushed to rewrite their articles. "Relative owns." Up to Robin Brown plot. Betrayal within Brown family. Within Brown family trials swirls the courtroom. Social media went wild. Supporters posting shock, amazement, and solidarity. The story had turned around dramatically in Robin's favor, and for the first time in weeks, she permitted herself a moment's relief. But, despite vindication, Robin experienced a flash of heartbreak. Once trust has been broken, it's hard to restore. Discovering that one she loved would move against her so deliberately left a scar greater than the courtroom melodrama. She had always boasted of being empathetic, of seeing the best in people, and of being
Committed to keeping families together.
Now she was confronted with the stark reality that not everyone would share her ethic. As the day went on, Robin's lawyers systematically employed the confession to destroy the case against them. Every lie, every false accusation was drawn out and revealed for what it really was. Evidence that had appeared persuasive mere minutes earlier now seemed weak, tampered with, and untrustworthy. Every juror in the room sensed the change, the perception scales decisively tilting towards truth. Amid the drama of the courtroom, Robin found her mind going to the children. How would they handle this betrayal? How could she shield them from the aftermath of the emotional pain, while also fighting the trial? Her heart convicted her at the prospect of them being in the middle of this storm that was not of their creation. But she knew also that holding firm, telling the truth, and showing courage would create a long-lasting legacy for them. One of strength, integrity, and unflinching adherence to family principles. The betrayal also taught a valuable lesson for Robin. Fearlessness is not merely about overcoming outside obstacles. It is facing those who hurt you from within. She had lived through rumors, baseless allegations, and lost evidence. She had weathered the spotlight of the media and strangers' judgments. And now, even with intimate betrayal, she was strong, ready to retake the story and defend what was most important. The day concluded in an uneasy silence, the confession weighing like a stone in all their hearts. Robin exited the courtroom with her face serene, but her mind ablaze with contemplation. The betrayal had stung deeply, but it had also lighted the way ahead. Justice was in sight, and her truth was starting to pierce the darkness of deceit and falsehood. Not every foe is an outsider, she told herself softly. And knowing that, Robin grasped the ultimate necessary lesson of this test. Strength is not defined by the lack of pain, but by the willingness to get past it, no matter how great the hurt. Justice isn't just about truth, it's about courage. Following days of suspense, tension, and emotional drama, the courtroom was still. All the individuals present, jurors, family, attorneys, reporters, and spectators, experienced the gravity of the moment. The trial had pushed Robin Brown to her limits. Accusations, lost evidence, betrayal from a close family member. Each challenge had sought to undermine not only her reputation, but the very fabric of her family. And now, finally, the moment of truth. Robin stood straight, shoulders back, face serene, but her heart pounding away. The jury re-entered, their faces impassive, eyes fixed ahead, hands clasped. Time was suspended in the room. Pounding outside, cameras clicking and social media humming with anticipation. Robin Brown verdict, moment of truth. Headlines flew before anyone even knew what had happened. The judge's voice cut through the tension, steady and firm. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, have you reached a verdict? The foreperson stood up slowly, the paper in his hand that would decide it all. The courtroom felt smaller, as the silence was more than anyone could bear. Everyone watched them. Every heart seemed to beat to the same rhythm of suspense. We have your honor, the foreperson declared, voice firm but burdened by the seriousness of the task. We find the defendant not guilty. There was a shocked gasp in the air. Relief, shock, and amazement spread throughout the courtroom. Robin experienced an overflow of feelings, tears building in her eyes. She had ridden out the tempest, weathered unfounded accusations, and overcome personal treachery. The words resonated in her mind. Not guilty. Justice has prevailed. For a fleeting instant, the courtroom hung in dismay. Cameras snapped, journalists wrote as fast as they could, and onlookers whispered, their tears wiping away, others shaking their heads in wonder. The verdict was definitive. Robin's reputation was vindicated, her conscience clear, and justice had prevailed. Robin took a deep breath, relief and victory, mixed with a sense of vindication. She had weathered the forces that sought to annihilate her family, her name, and her identity. Each restless night, each moment of worry, and each calculated move had been worth it for this moment of triumph. She had established not only her innocence, but also the strength of perseverance, bravery, and integrity. Her lawyer came up to her, a friendly smile on his face. "You did it," he whispered. "You met everything head on. Today proves your strength and your integrity." Robin nodded, accepting the words but aware the trial was about more than the legal win. It was about holding ground, defending the family she cared for, and proving that even in the face of deception and betrayal, she would not waver. Outside the court, reporters gathered in frenzy, clamoring for a quote. Flashbulbs went off, microphones thrust out, and reporters cried out questions, their voices competing to create a cacophonous chorus. Robin moved forward, serene and composed, poised to speak to the world. "This trial was never about me," she stated, her voice firm and level. "It was about truth, family, and the fortitude to stand up for what's right, even when things look unbeatable. I hope everyone watching knows that integrity and honesty are important, regardless of the challenges. And I want to thank those who stood with me, believed in me, and supported me through this very trying time." Her statements echoed far beyond the courtroom. Supporters, fans, and even skeptics were heartened by her dignity and poise. The tale of betrayal, tension, and ultimate redemption touched many hearts, showing that justice isn't merely a legal procedure, it's a character test, a challenge of resolve, and an exhibition of courage. Inside the Brown family, emotions were complex but heartfelt. Kody approached Robin, his face a mixture of pride and relief. "You did what needed to be done," he said quietly. "You faced everything with strength, and you've brought us through this storm." Robin's children hugged her forcefully, their eyes wide and awed, full of love. They had watched their mother endure phenomenal pressure, ride through betrayal, and come out on top. At this moment, they realized not only a victory in law, but an extraordinary lesson in courage, tenacity, and standing up for what is right. The trial, though arduous, had created a more solid bond among the members of the family. The teachings were evident: lying can come from anyone, bravery is developed in hardship, and honesty, however belated, can heal, restore, and redeem. As the Brown clan emerged from the courthouse side by side, cameras recording their every move, Robin experienced a quiet satisfaction. She had weathered the tempest, recaptured her narrative, and come away not only vindicated, but unbowed. The ride had been terrifying, full of suspense, heartache, and emotional roller coastering, but ultimately, a tale of victory, guts, and the abiding strength of truth. Justice isn't just about winning a case, Robin reflected as she looked at her family, smiling with quiet pride. It's about facing the impossible, staying true to yourself, and proving that integrity will always outlast deceit. The trial drama had concluded, yet the tale of courage and forgiveness would live on, a story of suspense, tragedy, and ultimate triumph, recalled by all who saw it. Robin Brown had been tested in her most significant challenge and had won out, an inspiration of strength and unshakable integrity.